Salutations, crustaceans. I'm Lobster, and today we're going to be reviewing the SoundGear SRMS805 from Ibanez. Let's check this thing out. This is the SRMS805 from Ibanez. This is Ibanez's, I guess, entry-level multi-scale bass. Launched in 2018, I believe this is their second generation from the, I believe it was like SRFF or FanFret. I don't remember what it was, but this is the second gen multi-scale sound gear from Ibanez, and it's okay. Now, I've reviewed the Portamento as well, the SRF705, and my biggest criticism were the Bartolini MK1 pickups. And I also reviewed the Ibanez EHB 1005 multi-scale bass, and one of my biggest criticisms was the pickups as well, the Bartolini soap bars. This is the same thing. These are the same pickups as I have in the stock EHB, which I eventually swapped out for some Aguilar DCBs with a much greater improvement there. And this also has the mid-level SoundGear preamp, which has a little three-way mid-frequency toggle as opposed to the mid-sweep, which we have in the EHB. For the body, we have a poplar burl top on top of a Akoma body, and we have a 5-piece walnut and Jatoba neck, and a Panga Panga fretboard. This is 24 frets, and it's a multi-scale fretboard as well. We have a 35.5-inch scale B string, and a 34-inch scale G string. Now, let's talk about this for a little bit. I like my Ibanez EHB 1005 a lot, specifically because the 35-inch scale B string and the 33-inch scale G string allow for a nice fan, but also it allows for me to use regular gauge strings. I can use my MJC Ironworks nickel-plated stainless steel 45 to 125 for my 5 strings, and I can use those right on there, no problem. With this bass, however, the SRMS, the fan on the fingerboard is much less drastic, and we have a 35.5-inch scale B string, which means you need a special B string for this. You can't use a standard 34-inch scale set, which is kind of a bummer because I have a lot of strings and I had to buy a special set just to get the B string for this. So the EA, D, and G strings on this are MJC Ironworks, and then the B string is a D'Addario that I bought. I think it's a Pro Steel or something. Either way, that's kind of annoying with this instrument. I wish that they just went with a 35 and 33-inch scale. I think that the fan here is a little lackluster given the options that are available nowadays, but we'll talk more about that later. The bridge is a individual string bridge unit that we have here where we can adjust each of the individual strings spacing as well as, intonation and height. So these are 1 unit per string versus a single unit for all 5 strings. The tuners are Ibanez in-house tuners as well, just the typical tuners you find on a sound gear. And one styling critique that I have is the headstock. They just gave you a regular Ibanez headstock from a sound gear, and there's a weird gap where there's just fingerboard and nothing going on between the nut and the headstock, and it's kind of annoying. I wish that they took more care into designing this rather than saying, hey, let's make a sound gear. Oh, now it's multi-scale, but let's just change as little as possible. I wish they adapted the design a bit more to the multi-scale thing that they have going on versus something like the EHB, which definitely is designed around its multi-scale neck, and everything kind of is purpose-built a lot more than this, where it's kind of adapting a sound gear design. Let's go ahead and turn this bass around now. Around back, you can see a good-sized control cavity, as well as a 9-volt battery compartment, and a 4-screw neck joint attachment. This is a standard sound gear neck attachment, nothing crazy here. The neck is a very nice neck, as you can see. This is a Jatoba and walnut neck, 5-piece. Looks good, no complaints there, it feels good. However, I do like the roasted maple on the EHB a lot better. Now I know you guys are wondering, what does this bass sound like? You guys know what you need to do. Go ahead and push that like button so my hand will turn back to normal. Thanks. doesn't sound too bad. Doesn't sound too bad. Again, my biggest gripe with these pickups was always just kind of a little bit of a lack of clarity. It was just something about the character that just seemed a bit muffled. And then when I swapped them out on my EHB for some Aguilar DCBs, I did notice a big improvement. Now, one thing I am going to note as a big difference between this bass and the EHB, other than the level of fan that's going on here, is the string spacing. This has 16.5mm string spacing, which in my opinion is rather tight, whereas the EHB has 18mm spacing, a lot more comfortable in my opinion. Now, what you heard thus far is both pickups together and the preamp centered. Let's go ahead and check out this neck pickup by itself and play with this EQ a little bit. Has some decent growl to it. Now, as I mentioned, this preamp has a three-way toggle for 3 different mid frequencies that this mid control can target. There's 250 Hz, 400 Hz, and 700 Hz. Now, with the mid control centered, it's not doing anything, but with the mid control cut or boosted, we do get a drastic change. Let's go ahead and leave the bass and treble control centered, cut the mids, and play with this little toggle. First, here is 250. Now, here's 400. This is 400 being cut. And finally, where's the button? Wrong button. Here's 700. Now let's go ahead and boost the mids to about 50% and do the same thing. So we're now going to boost 250 Hertz. And here's 400. And 700. Not too bad. Again, I do wish there was a mid sweep instead of just this three-way toggle to give you a little bit more control versus just 3 preset frequencies that are chosen for you. Now let's go ahead and just cut everything. Here's what this sounds like with just the preamp at full cut. Now, one nice thing about these Ibanez preamps, which I believe they include in a lot of different preamps, is the passive tone control with the preamp bypassed. Let's go ahead and bypass the preamp now, and our treble control is our tone control. So I like that feature a lot. I think that more manufacturers should include stuff like that, as it is very handy. Now let's go over to the bridge pickup. Here's the bridge pickup with the preamp centered. So that is the bridge pickup. It sounds, doesn't really sound that great. Now with the EQ centered, I'm actually going to go ahead and take the treble control. Let's boost it all the way, and let's hear what that sounds like. So honestly, that's kind of the clarity and definition that I'd expect almost at center. Maybe a little bit above center, but either way, I don't like that these pickups are kind of muffled in the center position for this EQ. I don't think that they should really keep using these. Now, one other thing that I have to point out is that Ibanez has launched a newer SoundGear line that has Nordstrom pickups, or at least Nordstrom designed pickups. And it does have this preamp, but I think that those are going to be a lot better sounding. Even though it's not going to have the multiscale thing going on, I don't think this is much of a fan anyways, especially compared to what you get from the EHB and other manufacturers who make multiscale instruments. So of all of those, I don't necessarily think that this is the best value. Now let's go ahead and bring the pickup selector over to center and center the preamp one more time. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the mids, leaving the treble and the bass at center. In fact, let's boost the treble to about 50% and play with this mid selector switch with both pickups engaged. First, we're going to have 250 hertz cut. Next, here's 400. And here's 700. And I'm going to go ahead and center the preamp now. And let's see how she slaps. Yeah, it's okay. I don't really like the tight spacing on this that much, and I'd prefer the EHB's 18mm spacing to this, in terms of slapping especially. Finally, let's go ahead and put some drums behind this bass. So here are my final thoughts on the Ibanez SRMS805 from Ibanez Guitars. Now, this, in my opinion, is a bit on the overpriced side, and for what you get, it's pretty, don't get me wrong, and it's well constructed, but I am not a fan of these electronics. I don't think they sound great, and for an instrument that costs, I think, about $1,000 brand new, I would rather get the EHB. The EHB has wider string spacing, it has a better preamp, And though it does have the same pickups, you can swap those out, and that is the one big thing I'd fault the EHB for. But outside of that, it is a more thoughtfully designed multi-scale instrument, where this seems to be just an adapted SoundGear. So what am I going to rate the Ibanez SRMS805? I'm going to rate this bass 2 claws out of 5. For a multi-scale bass, I think that Ibanez should update this to have a more drastic fan, either be more Dingwall-esque with a longer B string, or give us a 35-inch scale B string like we have on the EHB and allow us to use a standard set of strings. But for how this bass is in its current configuration, again, it feels more like an adaptation of a SoundGear to become a multi-scale versus designing an instrument from the ground up to be a multi-scale. So I don't really like this that much. Originally, I was going to swap out the pickups on this bass, but I'm not overly enthusiastic with it. It feels good, the materials are high quality, the finish is high quality, but these electronics are a bit of a letdown, and the price tag is a bit steep, especially considering that Ibanez itself has better offerings in the multi-scale variety. On the plus side though, again, the materials are high quality, the construction is high quality, and the B string is actually quite nice. That being said though, I don't think the extra ½ inch really makes that big of a difference to then warrant needing a special set of strings, which in my opinion is a little bit of a pain in the butt compared to, again, the EHB, which takes regular strings. So those are my thoughts on the Ibanez SRMS805. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, and join our Discord, and leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think about the Ibanez SRMS805, the multi-scale one. And until we groove again.